And we are live.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I am Matterall here with Elise.
Hey, how's it going? Very happy to be here. I'm the only one in space. Where are the rest of you guys?
I'll get there. I haven't blasted off yet. There's this giant chest in our face here. Oh, that must be
He's giving us a close view of the beard, the amazing beard that is.
I forgot to wear the V-neck so you guys can actually see some cleavage. My bad.
Yeah, some muscle cleavage. Except if you like that, guys. All right. We're also here with McLeod.
Hey, guys.
All right, we got a full house today. Lots of big names today. Up left, we have Kenneth Feld.
Good morning.
He's a new CSM member, also an industrialist from Pandemic Legion. We have Grath Telkin, no stranger to you guys.
Hey.
Hedliner's here with us. And he just waved on the audio record. Just to act like you're in court and you have to actually say something for the record. We'll go on, headline. And we also have Laz Tellraven with us. How are you doing, Laz?
Well, what's up, guys?
It's good to see you again. It's been many years. Okay. The first thing we're going to talk about, obviously this whole episode is going to be on this, what we called last time, War of Annihilation, or Total War of Annihilation. But for now, we're going to take advantage of having Kenneth here, since he does a lot of industrial work and logistics, especially for this kind of a thing. And we'll talk about the industry of war right now. What are we looking at with this?
Well, if you want a Minmatar ship, Tech 2, you're pretty much shit out of luck. DJ's retirement fund is pretty much emptied JITA of anything that's rusty, including all the moon goo to make said ships. 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, it would cost you about $285 million to build a Munin. Now build cost is about $350, $360, I think, somewhere around there. And I think JITA, they're selling for about $650, somewhere around there. We knew this was coming. We planned for it. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, but I did build roughly 800 Sabres in the 3 to 4 weeks before the war. So we did plan for this. It's not bothering us a whole lot, but I'm sure there's going to be some fire sales when this is all said and done.
Isn't that part of the Imperium defense strategy, since they are an industrial base and have been for a long time, to live off their stockpiles and fight a war of attrition?
Oh, I'm absolutely certain that's their plan. I don't think they were imagining that we're as far along as we are with what we have and what we have for our stockpiles. I imagine their stockpile is bigger, but they have a lot more people. So we're working with what we have, and I guess we'll find out in a couple weeks whose strategy worked better.
Yeah, market manipulation's always been a war thing for goons, but I think this is the first time that they've had like a bottleneck ship like the Munin that they can fuck with. But the goons made the same mistake in the past, like in the Fountain War. They went to war with Tempest Fleet issues, and then they whelped, I think, twice in a row and couldn't get any more. Like it was bad.
I think a lot of people tried it in history, like Seamus tried market manipulation once and then forgot, and then later found like a Traian-esque with a Mexilon in his hangar because oops. So I guess it depends on whether or not you're good at it or bad at it or whatever, but goons particularly might be good at it.
Do you have that? Because
no, I don't have it. I don't know.
I'd like to get that. If we can find that somewhere, I'd like to get that back.
Yeah, there's actually really neat things going on. Like Kenneth said, even if you want to build components for the Munin, it's not just the Imperium that's messing with it. Just these JITA industrialists and just JITA day traders are messing with it. You can look at the just the stocks of mercurite, mercury, and just neodymium, which is the base materials to build the stuff to build the Munin. And you can just see like the volume traded goes nutty. It's like 2 million traded and then it's just gone from the market for 4 or 5 days. I accidentally created a mini cartel. Okay, I'm giving myself too much credit. Me and like 3 other people ended up making a bunch of Munins together. And before we knew it, we had like accidentally cornered the market. Then we got really excited, unloaded all of our extra materials, and then someone went and bought them and then relisted them even 20% higher. So we were waiting for that peak. We're like, we're at the peak, let's sell. And because we're new at this and bad, we sold like just right, like I don't want to say just before the peak because it's still peaking, but we sold like probably halfway up. But we still made a profit, and I'm sitting on a bunch of Munins that I'm trying to now offload in Cheetah.
Well, that sucks though, because I've done market manipulation in other games before, and I'll feel like I sold at a good price, and then the price was jumped again, and then I'll get pissed off because like, oh, I could have made all this extra money, but you didn't.
Yeah, exactly. That was us yesterday. It's actually me and one other person doing it right now. His name is Hedliner. He's an Icelandic old school PL player. If you guys remember the capture the flag incident from a few years ago, he's the kid that stole the flag. He's like on vacation checking his Plex app or whatever on the phone, and he's just like he's sitting in a hot tub just screaming that he's not like making more money. He's like completely ruined his vacation. He sends me these pictures in Discord. He's like, yeah, I'm in this beautiful scenery in a hot tub and I can't stop looking at my phone screaming.
So are you just admitting there to getting Icelandic youths hooked on internet spaceship market manipulation, which is
pretty
basically
much
gambling, right? You know, soon he's going to be like shoving Icelandic krona into his computer, like trying to double down.
All right, before we
Matterall, look at Fernite Carbide and Plasmonics. That's where you're going to see the big ramps. All you're looking at is minerals. That's just, whatever.
Go ahead, McLeod. Go to say it again, Fernite.
Fernite Karma, it'll be under the composites for Mungu. Fernite Carbide and Plasmonic metamaterials. That's where you're going to see the big spikes.
Yeah, the Plasmonic metamaterials.
I love that he's going through the left side menu and it was like sitting right in the middle of his screen.
Shh.
Yeah, it'll look like a Falcon 9 from SpaceX.
We'll check out that that graph on the market here in a second. Before you take off, and I know you have to leave soon, Kenneth, logistics. What are the logistic challenges that people are looking at now in getting supplies, like actually moving them, not just purchasing them?
I mean, if you're coming from the north, Delve's a long way down there. So it's just a lot more sinos in the middle, but it's all good. It's low sec too. So it's all stations. You're pretty much immune to getting killed unless you're really, really, really dumb.
Do you have to think about like how close to the theater, the front, you actually build the stuff in order to minimize transportation and risk?
Absolutely. We pre-built. The problem with Tech 2 especially is unless you can really set up something with some decent rigs, it's still going to be cheaper to build it where you have a good infrastructure. The Tech 1 stuff that we're building now, maybe some ammo, that kind of stuff, it might be cheaper to build that in place. But I don't think we're quite there yet. I mean, we have to go through a lot of reserves before we get to that point.
All right. What do you guys think? Because I've heard Goon Swarm is really destroying some freighters and kind of hurting logistics. And any truth to that, or what's that about?
I think they're going after the high sec stuff, but I don't like high sec. High sec's too dangerous. I stay out of high sec.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of ganking going on. Usually people do the ganking like Niarja or Udama, something like that. The ganking is just straight up going on in Jita right now. If you want to gank a jump freighter that's nice and juicy, or it looks like it might be Pappy like related, those things are getting shot a little bit more. It's like just straight in Jita.
Yeah, I've had a friend that has nothing to do with the war, and his jump freighter was blown right up. Like he just
that's a
wrong.
horrible feeling.
And they're getting empty ones too. You know, if they think it's pretty much everyone against Goon. So if it's not a Goon jump freighter, they're just like, yeah, this one needs to go. I think they did 5 in a row the other day that were 100% empty. They just had cargo expanders, so they're stupid easy to blow up. And here's a pro tip for you. If you're flying through anywhere and you don't need the room, put bulkheads on it. They're 10 times more likely to leave you alone because it's a lot more effort to blow you up.
Yeah, a jump freighter can get up to like 900,000 effective hit points if you do it right. If you have slaves in and you put in some cargo expanders, or not expanders, but the bulkheads, you can make those things pretty massive. They still might take you out if they're motivated, but you won't get picked off by a small group. It'll take a meaningful effort. What do you guys know about the supply lines? Everything seem in order?
What's in order for us? We're fine. Like, well, I speak for PL perspective. Kenneth and I and a few of the team that sort of work together for all things industry related, kind of been working on stuff like this for a while. Before we even started thinking about getting involved with this war, because we were also thinking about the implications on the market, with resource redistribution anyway. So we just kind of doubled down on our efforts to make sure that we were covering our bases there. And I think honestly we'll be fine. We prepared well enough in advance, and we're a nice enough size for that to be a pretty easy job, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe Goons a couple weeks ago stopped all their exports of like Mungo and stuff, so that they're able to use that industry core and delve and build a lot of the ships they're currently using.
Yeah,
Just
so keep the supplies in the area and let the market suffer, because that's basically that's the oasis that your enemies are drinking from in the desert. One more thing about Kenneth, CSM put out a statement. Can you talk about that statement and what it's about?
Yeah, just after what happened in 2016 and 2018, 2016 was a little bit different because the changes were coming, and then we had the war anyway. So it's not like CCP did something. In 2018, though, I think it was 2018, they had all the drifters attack the citadels and stuff. And even though the CSM had nothing to do with that per se, and the systems were supposedly chosen at random, I guess they had an investigation on how the particular systems were chosen. And we just wanted to make sure that there's a couple things that are coming that we've seen that we've asked CCP, hey, we're talking about this now, but this may not be the right time for this. And then there's a few other things where they flat out asked us, hey, do you see a problem with this? And we've told them no, and those plans are going forward. And we just want to make sure that everyone knew that that was in the front of our minds, that what we advised on the war efforts would be taken into account. So it may be something that affects the war, but it would affect both sides the same. So it doesn't really matter.
Well, there was some talk about making sure that nothing changes during this war, because citadels came in during the last major war. Well, major war about 4 years ago, right?
Well, that was citadels, and all the capital changes came in, which really hurt the Imperium, because you had to refit your supers and titans with the plates and stuff, or they were worthless. Well, at the time, I think most of their supers were stuck in one POS, and we had it RF'd, and they had moved to Sarah something or other, and we're kind of stuck there. And we put a fort right on the undock, and it got ugly quick. But that change had been announced before the war started. So yeah, the change happened, but we went into war knowing on April whatever this change was coming. So you wouldn't expect CCP to hold up that change at that point. If you knew the change was coming, you went to war anyway, well, hey, that's on you. But the whole deal with the drifters and the invasion and all that stuff, that was a little bit different. They should have at least, looked at what systems were being hit overwhelmingly, that kind of stuff. So that was a little bit different scenario, because no one knew that was coming. And they have not told the CSM anything. They are being extremely tight-lipped on the next progress for that, as well as what the end goal is.
Got it. All right. That's that's all the stuff I wanted to get out of you, Kenneth. Please hang around as long as you can, but I know you have to take off.
Yeah, I got to get to work. Y'all have a great day. Nice seeing you, Grath.
You too, buddy. You too.
And Laz.
I want the fucking beard, though.
Oh, man, left out.
He has a pretty epic beard there, Kenneth.
Thank you much.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good day.
Thanks for surprising us. All right, good. Okay, let's talk about this this war. But before we actually go into the war and what happened and everything else, we have two guys here, three actually, that have been around EVE Online for a long time. One of the big events that Laz is connected to is the Battle of BTAC-R. It's still a signature battle for EVE Online as one of the biggest battles. We also have Grath, who's on the other side of that battle, on the PL side.
Yeah, because Manny went to bed at 10 o'clock in the morning.
People had to rotate. Can you take us back?
I've been up all night. I got to go to sleep.
Take us back for a minute and talk about that battle and how that formed up, like what made that happen. And the reason we're bringing that up is because it's a signature battle and we're looking at some circumstances that might be similar now. So Laz, what was it like?
Well, I mean, it all hinged off of mistakes, and that's the way most, or actually, I guess every single major Super Cap fight where there's a lot of stuff died, it happened from a mistake. And anytime there's a war, there's bound to be more mistakes that happen. So it all depends on if people are in position to capitalize off it. Because I mean, you see a lot of Titans jump instead of bridge. You saw in it already jump instead of bridge, and they welt an entire fleet to it. I mean, it's really all that it depends on.
Yeah, I kind of went to bed as we were headed north to deal with some random shit that Elo had done in the drone regions that we had to patch back together. And I was like, Manny, I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. It's like 4 a.m. I woke up to a giant article on INN and 100 pings on IRC, and we were already like down 6 or 7 Titans. And it's like, Manny, what the fuck? He goes, I fucked up. He stayed for like an hour, and then he's like, I got to go to bed. I'm so tired. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just sit here while we all die then.
Hold this baby.
Talking about similar situations occurring, right? Like literally just yesterday, PanFam were able to sneak in. I think it was three hyperspatial fit Titans through Hopib into Hopib. Like, I mean, talk about potentially creating situations that could end up in a BTAC-R situation, right?
Well, that's a bit different. They were just moving through. They were pretty slippery as well, right?
They were very slippery. They were moving, but they were moving in, and even though they probably wouldn't have had the tank to be able to last too long, I imagine the potential possibility of someone bringing in ships to be able to save them and all that kind of stuff happening. Like it could have escalated, man. If it did
you guys saw them, and I guess that by the time someone's seen them, ping for them, got some dictators for a jump gate, they're all sitting ready to go. Like they're kind of gone already because they're so quick. But like you've seen that moving Titans, particularly the rags that are intended just for bridging, like moving them into position all this way to Iridia has been a challenge for some people. Because
moving into Iridia, like into Hopib through Iridia, is pretty dangerous with LSH around.
I think people underestimate the vastness of fucking Iridia, how much empty nothing it is that you have to cross to get to anywhere important.
Yeah, and I think also that catches people. I think it works both ways. They underestimate just how far it is, but also that, it's Iridia, no one lives there. Well, there's one group of people that have always lived there, and they've capitalized time and time again on the assumption that it's just a dead tract of low-sec.
LSH... Sorry, go for it.
We'll see on the way home whether they collect any more people.
Well, LSH know that area like the back of their hand, man. Like, they are masters of that area.
They see you coming a long way off as well.
Haven't we seen the destruction of 3 Titans so far? I think they're by third parties, but we saw PL lost a Titan, right?
Yeah, I don't know what that guy was doing. He was told wait, and he didn't. And
I mean, I don't know whether that was in a safe spot that was close to an asteroid belt, but like the location of that and the fit that he had was very strange.
No, historically, there's always at least one where you're like, "Don't move," and they go, "Okay," and you turn around and they go tiptoeing across space, like, "No one will catch me," and then they die, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
So also there was 2 other Horde Titans that died. Does anybody know about those? Because I heard that they were, and this is not confirmed, but they were like initiative player that joined Horde to move, got killed, and then jumped out of Horde.
That's what I heard as well, but I don't know how.
We'll have a
true
look at that. I'm going to literally find it on Zkill.
And those were also killed by a third party, so we don't really call them official war targets. They're more casualties of logistics. That's why we didn't bring them up before. Okay, so BTAC, are we going to have another one of those? Laz, Grath, Hedliner?
You can't predict anything like that. You can't predict it. I mean, if it comes down to Keepstar fights, I'm sure you'll have some X-47s, but I don't know if you'll actually have something that would spawn like a BTAC-R where both sides are off of Keepstars or they can't just dock.
It's going to be a jump instead of a bridge, a bump on a move, or on an inside or something like that, where like the other night the 9 Titans lanced, if one of those guys had bumped wildly off and they'd capitalized tackling it, there's a chance for escalation. It's going to be some random accidental trash like that. Like there's not going to, the organizations involved are a little bit better with their sovereignty than perhaps we were at the time, so there's not going to be anybody accidentally dumping Sov.
So I think as well, like, and maybe this is an unpopular point of view, and I don't want to rag on B-R too much because it's like Laz's thing, but I think that things have moved on a lot since then as well. Like, and we've seen UALX and the 2 engagements in X-47 really kind of shifted the dynamics of how Titans engaged each other on somewhat from then. Keeping in mind that BDSR was over 6 years ago now as well. Like, and I think people have learned a lot from those 3 engagements, and to a certain extent will look to get the job done without having another one of them, because we know that they just, everything grinds to a halt, and it's not a particularly enjoyable experience for anyone. And I think like, it's probably a good chance that you could get the best part of winning a war done without having to go through all of that. But like Graf says,
I think people are trying to, like you said, I don't think people want that, because I mean, BHR took 22 hours, and people ask me about it, and like BHR wasn't even a fun fight. Whenever I ask me what my favorite fight is, BHR is not like the top of the list when it comes to my favorite fights that I've seen type thing. Like it was a slug, like it was a slog. I was up for I think 20 hours for it. It's like people don't want to do that anymore.
I remember being in right at the start of that particular fight. Like I was in the Dominic's fleet that was there with Razor. So that was pretty crazy.
To save lag, you were there to cut off reinforcements. Yeah.
Like we literally had orders that, if you died, you were not in any way, shape, or form to come into that system in anything other than, like a capital, well, actually no, I think it was just literally like super caps. Like you weren't allowed to go, like you basically told not to come into that system in a subcap whatsoever because of the potential possibility of the server being, unstable, like, or destabilized.
I know they're always a focal point as well, but like you guys will I'm sure, no doubt agree. But if you strip away, underneath the surface of all of those big, like, landmark battles that are usually born out of mistakes that people always talk about years later, underneath that, there's hundreds of smaller engagements which escalate quite well and are really playable and enjoyable, and like they happen between timers, often over nothing, and that goes a long way to like grinding one side down over the other. And that happened a lot in the Halloween war. Like every single day, like we would go out when we were all staged within 4 or 5 jumps of each other and just engage between the timers before we all like got in slow cats and sat and shot at an iHub or stopped people shooting at an iHub. And for me, that's
like the day before BDashR, we killed, or 2 days before, something like that, we killed all those dreads. Like hundreds of dreads died. Nobody even talks about that anymore.
No one remembers Head GP, do they?
Right, yeah.
I kind of feel like that was actually something that that was a catalyst for BTechR, to be honest, because like you get a degree of confidence when you pull off a win like that against an opponent, right?
We call that hubris.
Well, it's hubris if you take the fall afterwards, obviously.
Well, I think part of the problem is like I was saying this on the meta show, is that the Entosis system doesn't really spawn this type of fight anymore. With the SBUs and T system, you used to have you drop your SBUs, then you have actual subcat fights over the SBUs, and with the Entosis now you have all these little ships going around doing it instead of actual fleets.
Hey, Elise is back, by the way. But yeah, that is very true.
Also, there seems to be, I mean, we're definitely in a different world behavior-wise of players. We're also technically in a different world because of servers and progress. But we're thirdly in a different world because the game has recently really made those big super capital ships a lot more vulnerable than they were before. Isn't that right?
They shaved off some hit points.
Some might be, belittling a little bit.
I
mean, they're definitely killable now, right?
Well, they were killable before. The interesting thing now is going to be to see who, because it'll come at some point, who bites the wrong end of a new and improved dread bomb, like after these changes. Like when you see a really big one, that'll be interesting to see.
The other difference. Yeah, what were you going to say, Laz?
Oh no! As I said, both sides are telling people to bring their dread or get dreads in and train dread alts. I mean, it's coming. It's when is it going to happen, and who's going to be on the receiving end?
That T2 close range dread DPS, right?
I will say one.
Coming back with all my dreads at all 5. I'm ready.
There's one interesting little thing that's like kind of a throwback, I guess, if you want to call it, to BTechR. So in BTechR, the whole thing that started the fight was a Sov drop. That kind of just started everything. And the Sov was being held by Manny's Alt Corp, which he has claimed also did a Sov drop in Fat GP, or Fat 6P. I don't know why I call it GP. Fat 6P, which is where they're staging now. Neat little throwback. He does not hold the Sov in that system, though, right? So,
if you put Manny in charge of your Sov holding right now, you have serious issues.
I mean, the holding corp itself is cursed.
I'll have you know that the good men of Evictus hold the Sov there, so should be
safe.
Fine.
I'd also like to point out to everybody that the last major Titan fight that Pro God Legend was involved in, he brought 5 fucking Titans to help us out. 5 in a fight that had hundreds. He brought 5, and they all got away. So
this sounds like good positioning.
Just sounds like one of the things you're bitter about, Grath.
I'm a little bitter about it. 5. Also, what's up with my head fight? These are Logitech headphones. They might be 1980s. What's wrong with them? You don't like them?
All right. So one of the things that is news that's come up is that Grath, longtime famous for being a PL member, has moved over to Goonswarm with Laz. So what's that been like?
It's been fun. Everybody's been really, really welcoming and cool. I haven't met. I know at some point I'm going to meet some little bitter asshole that's mad about shit that I've said for the past 9 or 10 years, and he'll, I'm sure, rage at me, and I'll take pictures of it and post it so everybody can see. I would have tweeted more. I'm currently in Twitmo. I got out for like a half an hour and called the guy that reported my tweet a shitbag, so they put me right back in. Turns out that's frowned on. Otherwise, I would have announced more of it on Twitter. But it's been pretty good. I've never got to see the inside of this stuff. It's always been like spies that reported stuff to me, so I never had an alt in Goons or anywhere like that. So I don't know how any of the shit works, and it's kind of wild to see it all from the inside now.
So now you can see if they were right.
AMOC is, I was never wrong. Let's just go with that. That's what we're going to do. Across a long enough arc of time, I'm always right. So that's where we're leaving it. And but yeah, it's been fun. I've been on lots of fleets. A lot for me anyway. 6 fleets in 3 days or something. I think I joined Thursday, and I've been on 6 fleets already. Yeah. I'm
The
gonna
best part was the first night was the first night was Grath and I were all in fleet together, and I'm sitting there like I don't know where the fuck I'm going. I'm just getting fleet whooped by Asher, and Grath finally speaks up and goes, "How the fuck do you guys know where you're going?" And
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
Thank God someone asked.
Well, I set 1DQ as my destination as we're traveling, so I can try and get an idea where we're going. And I felt like every time we took a bridge, we were 10 jumps from 1DQ. I'm like, are we fucking going in circles? What the fuck is going on? And then suddenly we're in Fountain. I'm like, what? What happened? Yeah. Yeah.
So jump bridges are.
So can we not just go 5 jumps through regular gates? Do we have to go through like 20 different jump bridges?
Yeah, I was like, I'm sure I could have just taken gates and gotten here faster instead of weaving through the jump bridges.
Yeah. You should race the fleet next time, Grath, and then just rub it in Ash's face when you arrive first.
I gotta dodge all the Israd gate campers. I've already been messaged by Bernard and all that. Yeah, they're all over.
Hoping you didn't know, and then.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes open. I got to see where I can put the Chronos in play.
Ooh, and I'm right now it's watching that as
well. Laz left one system and got like Black Ops dropped. So
yeah, it was the Euro guys that were camping like in -8. I've been running around in battleships like Maelstroms and stuff, and I made it one jump out of 1DQ. I got T3 dropped.
Oh, that sucks. But you know.
So. Elise, Laz, just one last thing for you on this. What's it like having Grath around and having him in fleet and stuff?
Oh, it's always fun. I mean, like most of the fleets Grath and I are on together, we just sit there and shoot shit on comms and entertain the folks in fleet. And I mean, it's been a lot of fun. And I think the biggest thing is just us being there chilling and chatting just keeps morales up while we're shooting Fortizars or whatever the fuck we're doing.
That was one of the comments. Wait till Grath has to hear how bad goons shit up comms. Here's a magic secret. It's me shitting up comms. I'm the one doing all the talking.
Yeah, everyone's composed. Battle comms, fleet comms, and then Grath is just talking.
Yep.
I think everybody just wants to listen to story time with with Grath and Laz.
I haven't done anything yet, but I've actually been more motivated to do shit in the past 72 hours than I probably have in the past 7 years or so, I'd say. Like, there's small gang shit I can do. I've already seen that. That'll probably all end in a Black Ops Dino, but whatever, I'll fucking start it. And then all the Entosis stuff, they all seem to be like, that's like solo small gang stuff. I like that a lot too. I could get in. I don't really want to, I don't really want to lead any sizable fleet unless it involves a siege button, because I kind of like those. But like the smaller shit, I feel like I got a place I can fucking be on that and yell at people even. Be good.
Yeah, running after Entosis is pretty entertaining sort of thing to do. So long as they're
Grath actually went on an ADM fleet.
That was a mistake. I was like, Jackdaws, what's this fleet do? And they're like, it's an ADM fleet. I'm like, what's that? And they're like, we're ratting. And I was like, oh, well, shit. So that's well finished. And I hung out for like 3 hours while we did it. So that was just I just know now that Jackdaws are something I probably might not necessarily fly as much.
About you, Elise, did you want to say something?
Oh, no. I did, but my boomer brain forgot it. But I'm sure more moments will come up.
Well, I keep cutting you off. All right. So, that's an interesting thing about morale, because we were talking about that earlier, and like, what's an FC worth when they come back? Because Laz has come back after being away for a while, and Elo Knight has come back after being away for a while. Like, what's it actually like to come back, and how out of shape can you be as an FC?
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, for the first night back, Asher was like, "Man, you should leave some battleship fleets," and I was like, "Bro, I don't even know how to probe anymore. Like, it's like there's certain core skills that you forget how to do." And the first night I burned around Delve, I made perch spots in a lot of gates. So I mean, I'm already prepping for stuff. I don't know when I'll lead stuff or what I'll lead, but most likely be like a battleship fleet. And I've never been bombed in my entire Eve career where I lost like the whole fleet. But this will be the time. Like first fleet out, I'm gonna get erased. Like to the man erased.
Well, you had to say it there, Laz. Like, now you've just tempted fate.
It happens to the best of them. Sissy B got erased last night, didn't he? In D4KU.
Mm.
Who's come back for Pandemic Legion? Are there any FCs there?
Nah, not that I'm aware of. Man, we've had a steady
Whoa.
stream of people like come out of the woodwork as they always do and say, "Hey, look, it sounds like you guys are shooting goons. I'm down for that. Where do I sign up?" And it's like, burn out to Hot Pib and buy some ships.
I've seen Elise in space. I'm not sure
he's
how
not
many
retired.
fleets you're
He named
leading.
his
Like,
spaceship after
well,
Keaton.
yeah. I mean, I'm wondering whether how many fleets you're actually leading there, Elise, though.
Well, I mean, I've anchored a few fleets. They let me anchor every once in a while just to make sure I stay around. They give me like these menial tasks that I can do just to make me feel important and happy. And it's great. And then I get to post on Reddit, and that's the best part.
He's assumed more of a cheerleader role now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There comes a time when the old guys are better off being cheerleaders because we can just keep people entertained with stories and shit like that from the past 15 years that we wasted our life. And it keeps people around listening. And so the new young guys get to do all the work because fuck running all those clients. Like when we used to have you may have like 2 clients or something like that, maybe, and you get lost all the time and you had 10 people helping you out. Now it's like one little nerd and he's got 15 clients and he's running everything by himself. And they're like, I don't want to do that. Yeah, there you go. Him. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I'd rather just keep everybody interested in sitting in fleet for 7 hours.
That is such a good point because we don't really cover that. This is a game of commitment and showing up and being there. And, a fleet commander can definitely do that, can provide the context for some kind of activity and some excitement. But I think, when I don't want to set you off, but when Killer B said like, well, Grath isn't really pivotal like Laz might be.
That's what happens. He said that he doesn't understand anything that he's talking about, mostly because when he was around in PL, I absolutely hated him, and I just didn't want to do anything or be around him or other people like him at all.
Right,
so
right.
I didn't do anything for their fleets for any reason at all.
I see, but the point is that I think there is a misconception that somebody like you telling stories isn't valuable, because that to me seems like it would be the difference between a fleet you join and a fleet you don't join.
And you're understanding that as a difference between somebody that's smart and somebody that's not smart. Like the entire thing is how long can you get people to sit at their computer? And the FC can only do so much because he's got to listen to like 25 other fucking people talking in his ear and all the shit that's got to happen behind the scenes. So he can't exactly entertain constantly. So you keep people like me or people like Jeff or somebody like that likes to sit in fleets and keep everybody wanting to sit there and shoot the 7th tower or the 8th structure or whatever the fuck it is. Like those people are, regardless of whether or not you as an FC like the person, having those types of people around makes your day better because you don't suffer for numbers because people want to hang around this retard. As long as that particular retard's quiet when you need him to be quiet and call targets and make orders and stuff like that, they're important to keep around.
Yeah, you meant Jeff Rader when you said Jeff, right?
Yeah. Jeff hasn't ran fleets in like a really long time other than like small skirmish roams, but he's still really good to have around because people come to hang out when he's on comms because it makes the day better. Like funny is good. Boring and quiet is not good. Boring and quiet makes people go away. Like comics in your fleet that know when to shut up when the time is right, make people stay around.
I think that there's a healthy balance to be struck there. Like, we have some pretty quiet, chilled fleets, which people are like, we're quite happy to sit in silence for a little while. But, from experience, Grath, that there are some people who are perhaps slightly too vocal in fleets over the years, and that really cuts against.
Makes it hard. It makes it like there's a line you can cross where you can go from being entertaining to the fleet to a detriment to the FC getting orders out that need to happen.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why the goons have the no chatter channel where all you hear is the FC, so you don't have to listen to all the other random bullshit.
That's my favorite channel.
Unless your FC is boat. Then it doesn't matter if you're in the no chatter channel because you're still getting chatter.
When the no chatter channel like started, I thought for sure it was just a honeypot to catch spies because I just couldn't deal with it. At the time, I was like always on two comms. I was on our comms and like the hostiles comms. I was like, I can't deal with all these people talking. And Boat was the worst. He knew people like give Boat shit. They like, oh, Boat just likes to jabber. No, he does it like with a purpose to just annoy people. So they just start tuning things out. But when that no chatter channel came in, I was like, yeah, this is definitely a honeypot. I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to never. And then I saw it fill up. I was like, all right, this is the real deal. Everyone's annoyed too. Let me sneak in.
That's how I did the show yesterday. I moved to that no chatter channel. And then once Laz was like, I'll poke you when we start moving. I'm like, cool. And then I poked Laz because he didn't tell me anything. You were going to leave me in Fountain. And I'm watching you, motherfucker.
I was trying to get your
circling back to Matterall's point, it's like really early days in the war, right? So the thing that matters most is keeping people motivated, making sure you're like sending the right message to your line members, sending the right message to allies and other leadership as well. So you gotta, anything that can put butts in the chair is a good thing. It's an additive, right?
Oh, for sure.
So Hedliner, how much are you looking forward to this war? Were you always behind it, or was this a phone call you got that you said, of course, I'll do this?
Well, look, I've been around this block a few times, right? Like, I know how these things usually shake out. And for me, like I was saying earlier when I touched on the Halloween war, like the best part of these wars is the interim skirmishing between timers, or in the build up to timers, or in the run off of them, and that's what really gets me going. And I know that with this many people involved, there's going to be plenty of that happening across this vast like tract of space that we're fighting on, whether it's floodplains or otherwise. So for me, it was never in question of it, like, you know, need to be coerced into coming to PvP when there's lots of fighting happening. I'm quite happy to, like, you know, ride along and just, you know, get the frags as they come. I've fought enough of these to know that I don't need to be necessarily at the leading edge of it all of the time. I'll do my part and, you know, offer the guidance and experience that I've got. But, you know, it wasn't like a long negotiation of getting involved or anything like that. It's like, okay, there's going to be a war. We'll go get involved. Easy.
Yeah, there's things to do.
It's been a relatively slow first week too, though.
Well, I mean, for some, I've been pretty busy. I've been out.
Well, no. I mean, like so basically, it feels like in Delve Imperium bases, it's like that's a really slow theater compared to what you guys are doing up in Fountain. Like the initiative PanFam fight has been like, I wish I joined initiative just for those fights right now, because you guys are like constantly active doing stuff.
There's been quite a lot of skirmishing. There's been a lot of stand up, stand down, glare at each other from our stagings. Like, you know, we've gone out. We've done some sort of behind the lines iHubs in the middle of Fountain with my crew. It's been pretty good to sort of like warm people back up into it. And
there's definitely been some intense moments for sure.
Yeah, like yesterday was a really good day. Like, I mean, we were formed up all day, every day, like this week. But yesterday was mad. Like, we were going constantly, reshipping constantly, going backwards and forwards in and out of the Gateway constellation in Fountain. Had a couple of really cool engagements there as well. Mistakes were made by some of our friends, but you know, these things happen.
Mistakes just make you better.
Elise, can you take us through some of the stuff that has been going on in this war? And maybe we can start by characterizing it as really kind of a battle for the beachheads, right? The trying to get a foothold into either Fountain in the north or period basis in the south seems to be what is going on for this first week. But if you want to like just talk about the theme of this first week, if anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, my view is I'm trying to be as impartial as possible. If you see me posting on Reddit, obviously that's me like trash talking for fun, because that's a huge part of the enjoyment of the game for me. But on the show, I'll try and be as impartial as I can, right? So it does seem, as Laz pointed out, that the most action is on the fountain front between the initiative plus the Imperium versus PanFam plus Pappy or Legacy, whatever you want to call it. The reason I put those names first is because Initiative is doing most of the heavy work in Fountain. Every once in a while, they do call their allies to come in if there's a big timer. Same is true on the PanFam side, right? PanFam is doing most of the work. And then every once in a while, if there's going to be a big timer, Legacy will show up and vice versa. We kind of move back and forth. A lot of times we get lucky with wormholes. I know that happened the other day. But yeah, so a lot of it, as you mentioned, has been kind of fighting over the system of D4K, at least in the Fountain Theater, right? Because that's the entryway in the Fountain. All of PanFam are sitting in Hotbib, literally on the gate grid, more or less, in that Fortizar. And they're just poking and prodding in there as they get in. As more and more people come and get settled on the PanFam side, you see the entire area of Iridia gets like pacified a little bit. So all the Athenors and Fortizars that Initiative had put up there are like get cleared out. Obviously, the Initiative doesn't care about any of these, right? It just gives the PanFam side something to do. But the battle lines are definitely being drawn, and in the very early days. You saw the Imperium trying to like kind of find their footing, so to speak, and how they're going to motivate members. And they seem to have really found one, message that sticks, and that's you guys are the invading force. We are winning, and you are losing until you take a system from us. And like obviously there's stipulations on that, right? Until you take a system that we want, blah, 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 blah.
And there's always a large asterisk on everything that happens in Eve. There's an asterisk on every single statement.
Yeah.
But that's the main one so far. And that's how at least for in that front, that's how people are staying motivated, right? And you see on the Legacy and Pappy side, they're really sticking to the kind of like we're the good guys. We're the rebels, and we could do whatever we're like fighting the Imperial bastards and stuff like that. And they rally around a really funny story of a brave pilot who like killed the first iHub in his Corvette, right? So that gets like amplified on the Legacy side and the Pappy side, because that really plays into the narrative that, hey, we're the good guys, we're the band of rascals coming to fight this big monster, and even the littlest guy can have an impact. So you see these stories like amplified over and over and over on Reddit, on whatever media you guys want to consume EVE on. So it's interesting just to see, at least for me, to see the posturing of both sides. If I were to give them a letter grade, last week we gave them a letter grade on the very first ones. I gave the Pappy side a solid C+, which isn't a bad rating. I think the Pappy side's been upgraded to a B. I think the Imperium side's still sitting on that A. I think they're still motivating their members really, really well. The numbers don't lie. You can see Initiative, when there's a big timer, they will guard that D4K gate with 1,200 dudes for 4 hours to make sure no one sneaks into Fountain, right? They'll just sit on that gate happily. And, the next time they do it, there'll still be 1,200 dudes sitting on that gate.
Well, and that's kind of been the theme, is if they get there early enough, like the same thing with TCAG and G Magic. Like if you get there early enough where you hold that choke point, eventually if they want to make progress, they have to jump into it. But jumping into an established fleet through a gate, that is such a terrifying decision to make as an FC. And that's why you see these fleets, they form up, they sit on either side of the gate, and then they stand back down, because that is such a huge. It's a huge decision to make in this point in the war to go in and potentially welt before you even make it off the gate.
And the Imperium said a really neat little. So when I say narrative, I get a lot of shit for saying narrative, because it makes people message me and they're like, "I'm not getting manipulated by people." Like, it doesn't mean you're getting manipulated, right? That's just the thematic story that keeps your guys logging in. So the Imperium has this neat little one going where, like, they don't need to make any moves to win, right? That's how they're keeping their members going. They're saying, you know what, a draw is a win, and more than that, a draw is a loss for the other guy too. So in this war that it captures the entire server, more or less, the entire nullsec population of the server, at least, being able to win by not do anything is pretty neat, and a pretty nifty thing. Also, no one wants to make that first crucial mistake, right? It's one thing if you whelp a Baltec fleet or if you whelp a few Munins, like who cares? But the first person to make that big misstep or lose that big battle, they're on the back foot for the next entire week. And the Imperium knows this better than anyone else. That can snowball really heavily in your favor, or against you, rather. So they're being a little bit, both sides are being very, very, very cagey. And that's not surprising. I think that's going to continue for a while. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the Imperium is really good at phrasing, especially Goon Swarm. Didn't they have a term for not winning fast enough? Like they are able to like couch what the victory conditions are in a funny way to make it stick a little bit better, I suppose. So when you weren't making progress fast enough, you'd be like, oh, they're laughing at us because we're not winning fast enough. And it's kind of the reverse situation here, to hold off the invading forces and to make fun of them for not winning fast enough. It seems to be like, part of that messaging machine that goes to work, not just on the Imperium side, on both sides, but.
Yeah, they've definitely weaponized. Like not fighting, which makes it sound really shitty, right? But it's not. I'm not trying to throw any shade or anything like that. They're playing this absolutely perfectly. It's why I gave them the A in the rating. I'm not trying to be like subversive or anything.
You gave him a B, I thought.
I gave Pappy a B. I upgraded them from a C to a B.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I kept the Imperium at an A from last week.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. But you're talking about their messaging, what they're trying to say, how they're trying to position the war, what psychological conditions they're putting out there.
Yeah, and another thing that we mentioned last week to keep on the lookout for is the Imperium trying to sow discord between the entire Pappy side, because you're talking about a bunch of loosely put together coalitions, some of which don't like each other or they don't work well with each other. And it's a beautiful situation for the Imperium because you just have to poke one guy over and over again until he just like gets ragey and leaves. We saw early days, like before the war even started, the messaging was, we don't care about NCPL anymore, whatever, they're irrelevant, hoping to bore that front out a little bit or to not give them any locker room material to talk about. Now, as you see it moving, a very interesting thing that the Goon, or I don't know why I say Goon, the Imperium, like they call it the Black Hand, that they're on the lookout for like someone having a meltdown or something, or some weird little market thing.
Something like Alpha Star Pilot?
Exactly, right? So Alpha Star Pilot the other day, he has like just a passionate moment, and he knows better, right? He's been around longer than most other FCs, even though he's only like 20 years old. He's got a decade.
He's got a decade of experience in this game, and he's only 23, 22?
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
I remember being on his fleet when he was like 12 or 13 years old. I was like, this can't be real. Anyways, so he had an outburst. He got frustrated. People were being on comms. I don't know the actual full story. So he had a momentary outburst, after which he apologized. But in that time, the Imperium Black Hand just signaled that little snippet out because it fits their narrative very well. And they just amplified it so loud for an entire day on Reddit. All you could see is Alpha Star Pilot memes. And, that's these little things have a huge impact.
Yeah, and I know that, like, all FCs get to that kind of point at some point, right? Like, they have situations where, either the stress or the passion that you have, like, in doing what you're doing, peaks at a certain point when somebody does something either dumb or, says the wrong thing that, like, kind of triggers you off kind of thing. I know that, like all FCs have this at some way, shape, or form. Like, I watched Pando's FC chat with you, Laz, and with Kendar, and like you've all had those experiences. You've all had those moments, and it's just it's how you carry on from that kind of moment.
I would like to quote Elise's fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
That happened once. I had one slip in a decade. It was great. It got caught on comms. But yeah, I mean, everyone has one, right? You could just, if you look at any person on this stream right now and type their name plus rage EVE Online, you'll find a video.
And she's never even heard of Eve. She was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. They're dumb." She goes, "That explains everything." And that was the end of the conversation. But yeah, that was good.
I'm sorry, honey. Someone's wrong on the internet.
Laz, have you raged?
Yes, yeah. I used to be real bad at yelling at my fleet, and I think there were a few video clips. I think some of them have been deleted by now, but yeah, I used to be bad about it because I grew up FCing with Super Twinkie 69, and if you know Super Twinkie 69, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yelling.
I feel like, if people think that some things that they hear on comms today are bad, they should take a trip sort of back.
Some of these young men have never had a guy from Norway threaten to fuck him with a tree stump before, and it shows, or wherever the hell she dude's from.
Finland,
there we go. Fucking Greta, I will fuck you with a tree stump. I was like, whoa, sweet.
Like, yeah, I but then again, things have moved on, I guess. We're in a different era of the internet now, aren't we?
Well, that's what I was saying on Pando's chat is that type of FCing isn't tolerated anymore. It's like because people like in the world in general, like that's not like not PC anymore. So if you have those outbursts, then like half your fleet's going to drop type thing. Like you have to be much better at controlling yourself. Because I mean, like PGL, from what I've been reading on Reddit and everything, is that he still rages quite often, and there's test members that post on Reddit saying, "I just dropped fleet after that" type thing.
Yeah, even scream at you, and you couldn't understand what the fuck he was saying, but his voice just knew that you were wrong, and he was right, and he was pissed about it.
ProGod seemed to have gone the other way because he used to be really chill and relaxed and kind of fun and stuff. And then later he got the reputation for being a shouter, but he wasn't really a big shouter that I can remember early on.
He had to find his wings for sure.
Yeah, he had to find his wings.
The rage is within you. You must find it.
Oh, Super Twinkie, and I'm sure some of these other guys. Yeah, it was a different game, a different time. There's a lot more abuse, and it felt more like.
Hang on a minute. It's not. It's never been abuse, right? Like I don't think you can construe like it. I think we have to be careful there, right? We can't label people like Super Twinkie as being, abusers. I think that's.
I don't know if some of you have met yourselves, but you're annoying. And when there's 250 of you all being annoying at once, it gets a little stressful. Shit happens.
I mean, by that logic, Grath would also be an abuser. He might hold his hand up and say that he is, and he's proud to wear that badge. But that.
I do not care about your feelings. If you were fucking up, I don't care.
That's right. The difference there is that people seem to find it funny when he gets angry and starts going off on someone. And, it got to a point.
Vince has that same thing. And I think the humor is a big part of it. Even when Vince is yelling, there's some comedy to it in the things he's comparing you to. Like a pigeon that can't stop shitting on the floor kind of thing. And it takes it off that edgy element. But maybe abuse is too strong a word. So I'll take that back. It wasn't abusive, but I do feel like there was a lot more permissive for fleet commanders to be really strong towards their members sometimes, or frustrated at the situation.
I agree that it was sharper.
There's a slight difference, right? There are people so there's some famous recordings from Maka where he just tears people down the whole time. You never hear any upshot to anything like that. Whereas the people like, say, myself or Vince, who have been allowed to yell at people for years, like if I knock you down, like I then make it my fucking mission in life to go back behind you and build you up a little bit on anything good you do, just so you know that I don't fucking hate you, and that you do good things sometimes when you fucking dedicate your mind to it. But in this particular instance, you were shit in the bed, and I'm here to tell you all about it real loud, like. And there's the difference in the way that people handle that situation is how their reputation as far as yelling at people goes. Like if you just tear people down all day, nobody wants to be around you. But if you can, almost like an older brother or a helpful uncle kind of way, like you shit on them, but then later on you help them be a better person or fix what they did wrong.
Like Dog the Bounty Hunter, right? You remember him?
I don't know if I want to go with him. That's a fucking mullet.
You remind me of him a lot, Grath.
All right, well.
Well, it's not even really raids though. Like the best description I can think of it is there's times where you're in the middle of a fight or you're trying to catch up to a fight and you're about to bounce onto the fleet or you're about to have to bail and get out the fight, and then you have this one really fucking purple little dictator drops a fucking bubble on top of your fucking fleet when you're trying to fucking warp away, and it just builds and builds.
So you have all these from an FC's perspective. There are so many fights that don't happen, right? You put everything into it, you put all the work in it, you generated a timer, and then there's no fight happen because the stars didn't align. Then you finally get, like, everything works in your favor. All this work that you've done for maybe days or weeks has finally come to fruition for a fight, and then someone screws it up, and you just fly off the handle, right?
Elise's single rage point was a guy jumped when he wasn't supposed to, and he got himself and someone who decided he was going to try and save him killed in the process. And all that guy had to do was not jump and not spoil all Elise's hard work for the fucking day, and he didn't do it.
And I was going to shoot 2 other Titans that were going to, like, just die, so I had to scrap that. I ended up so it turns, like, this big win to a huge L, right? So you get so mad.
And we were there for hours as well, sitting there, like, trying to unpick that mess. Like, whereas that guy lost his ship and dipped.
It would have been fun, yeah.
That's insulting, too. Elise, you're known, though, for keeping your calm. Like, the reason that even when you get mad, it's very friendly.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, that's always been my move, right? Like, my FCs, everyone's got a different move. Mine was never rage because I couldn't pull it off. I was too soft-spoken. So my way of, like, making you feel bad or to, like, make you know that you did something wrong is just disappointment, right? Which is something Shadu did to me over and over again, right? Because he would try to yell at me and I'd be like, whatever, you're just some dude on the internet yelling at me. But then he'd be disappointed in me and I'd be like, no, I can do better, right? I promise you I can do better. And so he was, like, super manipulative that way.
It's like a father thing though, right? Like, that's like, you know, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
If anything, Matterall, maybe he's the abuser, like, you know, emotionally.
I never thought of that. You're right.
And relentlessly making fun of us for feeding and getting it wrong. And
yeah. Well, I don't know what it is about Vince, but when Vince gets mad, it's not personal. It doesn't feel personal. It doesn't feel like he's attacking your soul. It's almost like he's.
It's super important to get real mad like that to try and avoid directing it at one person and make it more of a group thing. Because when you direct it at one person, that can be basically abusive, right? Like one of the fallouts from Elise getting mad was we kicked the dude that jumped, but then we also kicked his cousin, which felt a little bit personal, right, over the years. Even though they're like, the guy himself was not a good person, but the action was maybe not. And that felt a little bit particularly directed, whereas a lot of the times, like even with the Revenant Rage, I didn't necessarily cuss one particular guy out. There were like 6 or 7 dudes there.
Unless you're Mad Cat?
Well, fuck Mad Cat. Still to this day, fuck Mad Cat. But like I blanketed, you know, like when you yell at people, if you direct it at one person, that can feel very personal, and you have bad things that happen later after that, especially if that person has any, like, I don't want to pick on Ed, but when we yelled at the guy that unplugged the fucking clone bay in M-O, instead of yelling at a bunch of people, we yelled at one particular person and he unplugged the fucking clone bay. And whereas if you just bitch in general, people tend to like, oh, he's obviously not talking to me, he's talking about your dog. Everybody tries harder.
I'm glad you said we there, because you were definitely complicit in some of that. I was not alone. In fact, you were more vocal about how dissatisfied you were than I was.
Yep. And and then he unplugged the clone bay. And that was the end
for that, though, while you just, like, vanished into the
After he unplugged the clone bay, he probably didn't message you and apologize, whereas I got a long, lengthy apology and an explanation on why I did it. And I'm like, all right, well, part my fault, part your fault. Everybody fucked up. Have a nice day.
Hedliner, do you think that you take, because you're kind of a quiet guy, do you take more heat about being an angry FC than you deserve? You seem to have taken some things on your shoulders that don't completely belong to you. And that might be one example.
Yeah, a lot of the things that happened between 2016 and 2018 were legacy issues which I inherited on my watch, right? And anyone, frankly, like I've got to the point now where, I fixed those mistakes that were made by other people, or, I, helped smooth over a lot of things that would, carried out at the hands of people who are long gone, and then that's not to point any fingers at Grath or Elise at all. I'm talking about other people who were in our alliance at the time. And, the process of working through fixing some of those issues and making changes to prevent them from happening again was a long and tedious one, and it pissed some people off, and it made me look bad because I was having to fix things which were frankly nothing to do with me, but were now my responsibility because I was taking ownership for running the alliance. So yes, I think it's fair to say I've had some of that stuff land on my shoulders, and then I've been caught out in the same way as other people have, in the one moment where you're truly angry and it gets banded around like it's normality or whatever. I have a temper like everyone, but it.
To anybody that's never listened to it's like LFC seem to get mad. None of you have ever met Dankel either, which can be a fucking infuriating process in of itself. So anytime that you hear one of us get real mad, if Dankel was involved in any way, shape, or form, completely fucking justified.
Dankel's back, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
I think.
I mean, the big thing.
Go on. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say the big thing, like with the Alpha Star pilot rage. Even though he raged, what he said wasn't wrong. When it comes to these big wars, the amount of work and pressure is only on a handful of people. So it's very easy to get to that built up point where you're going to have an outburst like that, and the regular line members don't really understand that. But like I said, like the big thing about the Alpha Star pilot rage is it's only been a week and it's happened. But not that the message was wrong. Like he's 100% correct.
I think also it should be said he apologized on that same channel afterwards or that evening or something. So I think he may have realized that was an outburst and wanted to fix that.
These things happen, right? And to the educated person who's also human, understand that okay, yeah, he's probably just having a shitty day and said the wrong thing, and then immediately realized that and apologized to people for it. And the best thing to do in that is his members have all drawn a line under it and moved on. Obviously, there's some gleeful idiot in the Imperium who's latching onto it and banding it around like they've won a massive morale victory by causing some guy to have a fucking aneurysm. But
is there anything to that? Is it an indication of fatigue? Is it an indication of the only way it's indicative of something going wrong is if Alpha Star Pilot is so rattled by it that he's off his game going forward. But he is not. He's been out running fleets non-stop since, and he will continue to do so, right? And people are joining them. His fleets are just as full as they were before he had the incident. If it were to happen 5, 6, 7 more times in the space of the next 2 weeks, then yeah, maybe they've got a point. But as of right now, no, they don't.
I mean, a lot of it is you're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall to see what sticks, right? If you can poke some jabs and just post 35 million ISCORM rants, lol, in local, and it has a market effect, like if people stop going on his fleets, people stop logging in, then you just hammer that home over and over and over again. But if it doesn't work, you pick up another handful of whatever you want and just throw it and see what sticks next week, right? That's just the cycle of the war. And what I found really interesting so far with this war is, and I was talking to Laz about it too, a lot of the people involved, right? We're not talking about FCs. We're not talking about alliance leaders, because they obviously have done this dance before. But a lot of the members involved, a lot of even the very useful members involved, haven't gone through something like this on this scale. So they don't know what goes into it, or they maybe moved from line member to scout or to FC or to fleet anchor to target caller or something. So they made that leap and they've never seen anything like it before. So they're kind of a lot of people are deer in the headlights. And kind of going back to our original point, when you have someone like Grath or Laz coming back, it kind of calms down, has this soothing effect for these people that are super amped up at something they've never done before. And you can have people come in and say, hey, this is what's going to happen next. Here's what you're going through right now. don't panic. Let's have some fun. Whatever you want to say.
That's an interesting advantage to have entertaining and legendary players among your crew to kind of keep morale up. Yeah,
that was literally my job in B-R, was just to keep people calm as they fucking died for 19 hours after Manny went to bed. That's it. There wasn't anything else you could do as an FC in that fight besides like calmly try and ask for the Snigwaff guys to bomb some bubbles off somebody, watch Shala Cameron moonwalk his Titan out with a micro warp drive. But other than that, you were just kind of trying to keep people's nerves calm while they died. And that's it.
Another effect you have, especially when you have like, I guess you can call them historic enemies, even though I don't think Grath was a historic goon enemy. When you have someone coming to your side and an old name coming back, right? It gives you like this sense of, hey, we're on the right here. Like the messaging that the Alliance has is absolutely correct. We're not making mistakes. These old guys even believe in us. They're coming back. These former enemies are now our allies. Like they believe in us. They hate the other guy too. Rah, 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 rah. We're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and it seems like it would actually attract other guys to come out. Elo Knight is also back. He's in the audience here. He's also been hired, or sorry, I'm making an assumption there because he's been hired before, but he is working with the Imperium as well, another legendary FC. On the flip side, Hedliner, do you have that same kind of a thing? Is that even a worry or a consideration on your part, or are you just concentrating on the military aspects, not necessarily the morale aspects? Because you have, it seems like you might have different types of players in your group.
Well, things have moved a lot in the last 3 or 4 years, right? We've had a lot of people who played very extensively in the sort of first half of Pandemic Legion's history, sort of slipping off into other things, other games, like moving on with their lives, having kids, getting married, that kind of stuff. And an injection over those 3 or 4 years just gone of new players, who aren't necessarily as concerned about, names of years gone by. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Like it's not really a concern at all. If anyone, like, if Grath wants to come back, I'm sure he'll let us know. It's a very different place now to where he left it like a year and a half ago.
I've looked at kill mails and I don't even recognize 3/4 of the fucking names on it. I'm like, who is it? What is no girls? What is that? Where did that come from? Where did you guys creep around a Louisiana graveyard and dig that one out of? I don't even know.
Friends of friends, right? Who wants to
Yeah,
come?
you have a polite way of saying is the young kids couldn't hold a fucking grudge if you tape it to their hands. These guys are weak.
I mean, Elendar came back. That's pretty big. Elendar is a pretty big name from years past.
Is he back in PO? Because he had been dicking around at Lusek for a little bit. I know that part.
Yeah, he's around. He's here like a couple of times a week.
The only more British person than you I've ever met.
From the PL side of things, I don't think the war really motivated more people to come back. I think the last 3 or 4 months of like just constant everyday fights brought a lot of the old school names back. So when you're talking about like a resurgence of people, and we're just talking about PL, we're not talking about Legacy, we're not talking about Test, Brave, anything like that. Mm-hmm. A lot of those names that you would kind of expect to come back came back 3 or 4 months ago with like a lot of really fun fights happening. So they were like, hey, this is the Eve I remember. This is Eve in my day. Let's give this a whirl again. Yeah,
and at the same time as well, like there are some people who will never see back for whatever reasons, but we've something I've worked very hard to do is to try and bring in like a lot of new blood into leadership positions within their corps and within the Alliance more broadly, because it's time for a change, right? You can't just coast off things that happened many years ago, because I say this every time I come on this show, like you're not playing the same game as we were back then. So really we shouldn't really benchmark ourselves against it at all. We should look at like what we want to do with our members now. And it's fun to talk about this stuff, and it's great to get together with you guys on the show and talk to like Dig should do out of the outback, dust somewhere. but really, it's absolutely zero consequences to what I'll do with my fleet after this show or tomorrow. Like if if we were geared in such a way that we needed to run on that kind of like recirculation of old morale, then yeah, absolutely, we would be pushing that very hard. But right now, it fall on deaf ears for a lot of my members if I were to wheel out Shadoo.
I will say, on one of Grath's points is that he's saying this generation of Eve player can't hold a grudge, right? I have been seeing the weirdest phenomenon happen in the last 4 or 5 days, right? It didn't happen a week or two ago. It didn't happen when the nip slip was announced. It's been happening the last couple days, and it's actual like real anger from people like fighting one another, right? It's not like, I'd say in the last 3 or 4 years, I could go into a hostile staging and like no one would give a crap, right? Or I being like someone that they're like allied against or fighting, and nothing really happens. Just like, hey, we're both playing EVE Online, whatever, blah blah blah. You guys suck, ha ha ha. But it wasn't. There was no real vitriol in any of their statements. It was just like, oh, whatever, we're playing EVE. EVE is a fun space game. But now, like, if you check your like Alliance Discords or like Corp Jabber channels or whatever you want to use, people are actually super mad at the other side. Like,
yeah, little horde guy was like, I don't not like many people in EVE, but you're the one I despise most because you're a turncoat or some shit like that. I'm like, oh, and somebody's like, oh, you'd have a beer with him in Vegas, and he's like, I'd throw it in his face. I'm like,
yeah.
Wow.
There's real rage that we haven't seen in the game before. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
It's not a good thing.
You've seen it in the game before, in the game previously, but not for a while. Like,
yeah,
the old
exercise in his life. I think he'd be fine otherwise.
Yeah, the old wars, like the Hell Wars, were pretty much fueled from hate. Like, and hate's one of those sorts of things
but that's different though, because right now it's line members. Because the issue, my opinion, the problem with EVE in the last 6 years is that the upper echelon of the game became friends. So where like people you don't really have that hate that's going to fuel the leadership to say, I want to go to war, I just want to fuck his shit up and take it. You don't really have that in the game anymore.
The issue here as well is that when you compare what's happening now on the scale that's happening to something a number of years ago, the big difference is the social media, like out of game aspects that have really sprung up around the game. Like Reddit's a big one. Like it used to just be confined to the CCP forums and Kugu, but now you've just got this like dumpster fire of shit posting on Reddit.
It's the worst being in Twitmo for the past week. Is like it's just changed the way that players kind of behave and perceive each other. And I don't know. Like, I don't think it's the best thing, but it's too big to put back in the box now. And that's a big difference. Because
you get Discord servers too where everyone's hanging out.
It's conditioned a whole new like generation of players into thinking a certain way. And I guess they take it as written sometimes, on there, and it's very difficult to kind of educate people otherwise, I think.
So I recently like started to resub some spies that were like really, really old. One of them was like actually Shadoo's old character that Mr. V was bragging that he outed a while ago, but luckily all those people are gone now, so they don't know that was a spy that was burned. So I was able to like sneak him back into his group. So I've been like doing a lot of observing I guess you can call it social structures, right? I'm just sitting here like Jane Goodall, and just the amount of people that are just saying, rah, rah, like, we hate these guys. It's not just the vocal minority that go on the Reddit or go on to whatever and start typing incessantly. It's the actual like most of the people actually feel this way. Like the average, even if they don't say it, they're like typing it to their friends like, man, these guys suck, ha ha ha, they're all losers. Like, obviously they're not taking it to real life, right? Like, oh, these guys are all like cowards for not fighting us, blah blah blah, rah rah rah, we're gonna beat them. Just the amount of like actual anger within like line members is something I haven't seen in a long time. It's completely wild.
I don't know where some of that comes from though, because a lot of these like players, like they're not long enough in the game to actually be like, when people get angry, right, about the T20 incident. Like, who even you'd be struggling to find someone who was actually there when it happened now, but people are still super mad about it when you get them going.
I mean, I've seen people like look at your corp ticker and being like, you are shitty because of your corp ticker, right? For a while, I think people in EVE accepted that you're going to be pretty fluid no matter where you go. A guy from Goonswarm isn't inherently bad. A guy from a test isn't inherently bad. Like,
I would play
that
like
was definitely
their advantage though. They join some shit tier group, and people are like, "Oh, your ticker makes you bad," and then on the other side of it is some dude who's really good at like double clicking real fast in space, and he beats your ass because you're like, "Oh, brave ticker," and suddenly it's Sutonia or some shit like that on the other side of it.
Well, there used to be like a ticker where you'd be like, okay, I can guess the skill level of this pilot based on their corp or alliance ticker, right? But it was never, okay, well, I don't want to say it was never. For the last 5 or 6 years, it wasn't this guy's the enemy. I would never accept him in my ranks. I hate him no matter where he goes type of thing, right? There was an era in EVE Online at the very beginning where if you had a Band of Brothers corp in your corp history, you were never joining Goons ever. They would never let you in, and then that like fell to the wayside after a while. And obviously, it went the same way too. Like if you had Goonswarm in your ticker, you were never ever going to be accepted into like Mercenary Coalition or Band of Brothers. And then that seemed that it just was gone for a while. Like people like moved around, they bounced from one side to another. No one really cared, and it sort of looks to me, and obviously we're making a lot of what's happened in a week. This might not exist, right? This might not exist in a month, but for right now, it seems like that sort of like line in the sand is coming back.
But do you feel like Villy might be trying to tap into like that old school kind of thing of, just branding an entire group as being, inherently bad for the game, like in the same way that Samol kind of used to do that?
It's fucking absolute cowardice. And for everybody that shamed me for joining Goons, if you fucking strapped up on his side, you're a piece of shit too, because it's fucking Billy. Fuck Billy.
Well,
I strapped up on that side. Woo.
There you go, Elise. That's what you're talking about.
I'll send for Billy, but it was the pro god speech, right?
All bastards that can't. Fuck Billy forever.
Okay.
It was the pro god speech. It wasn't the Billy speech, really, right? From the State of Legacy or whatever. He was the one that really went for the vilifying of the other side.
Oh, that was
I don't think it landed, right? I don't think that landed or did very well at all. You saw Legacy and Pappy kind of abandoned that too. Like they abandoned that narrative pretty well down the road when they see it didn't really.
Well, maybe it didn't land in nullsec, but I think in some parts of when we were doing our move up from the drone regions all the way across to Iridia, we were going through midpoints where like there were people just passing through like well wishers saying, "Oh, like you have to fight the Goons, give them hell, boys." Like okay, maybe it's more of a high sec thing or a low sec thing.
So there are people that are not involved, right? And this is always one of my favorite things to look at in these wars. There are groups that are not involved, but they have a side. They care sometimes more than the line members care about who wins or who loses. And these people will never be involved in nullsec at all. Like these, you're talking about industrialists that I was like moving a jump freighter and a guy comboed me because he thought I was using a PL tune. He was like, "I was going to shoot your jump for your Sino, but I know where you're going, so I'm not going to shoot you. Good luck," and like stuff like that. But there are people who are not involved that take a side. They absolutely take a side. They have a team that they want to win, and it's the funniest thing.
I think that's really cool, especially the part about "give them hell, boys." That cracks me up as people go through. I think they just want to reach out and say like, "Oh, those are the soldiers. Those are the having something to say to those guys passing by." I think that's really great.
Well, we found it quite amusing as well, and it was what's funny about it is it must be quite a luxury for someone who just doesn't care about which way this thing's gonna break to sit back and watch as the entirety of the nullsec community of EVE Online collectively shits itself. Like that, if you have no dog in that fight, then it must be great to just sit back and watch it all kind of fly backwards and forwards.
Do you feel like a lot of the people who are fighting in this war, nullsec now in general, are relatively new to the game? Let's say less than 3 years old.
I think there's a decent portion of them who probably are, right? Like, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm sorry, I'm busy arguing in your chat. I was.
There's a lot of.
I just like to throw out there. He's an idiot. I've literally never FC'd a fight against Billy. So when he says I've won like a whole bunch of them against you, that's him making shit up in his head.
Oh, I didn't.
There's definitely still a lot of old players from back then. Because I mean, I'll go on fleets and I'll recognize a lot of the names from back whenever I was FCing or when I was actually playing. I mean, it's there's still a lot of people that remember the history in the game.
That wasn't the question, though, was it? The question was like, how many people do you think are involved who are kind of newer in the game, say up to 3 years? And I think the answer is quite a lot. Right?
Oh no, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of those.
So it's a lot of the people who are like enabling the content, right? So you might see like the FCs are the same FCs you've seen for years, but the people that are doing the scouting, they're writing down the timers, grinding the shitty structures that no one wants to fight over. Those guys, a lot of them are new, at least on the Pappy side. Right? The names I haven't seen before, and that's kind of an exciting thing for Eve, because for the longest time, the level of FCs, like the FCing was kind of like a pyramid, and at the very top, like that group never changed. They were there from when everything started, and then they'll probably be here until everything turns off. But it kind of choked out a lot of people that were rising or that maybe wanted to FC, because they could never compete. They could never get that level of experience to be good enough.
What was the young one that we had that always wanted to be in the FC core, but he could never manage to wedge? What was his name? We did Dungeons and Dragons with him.
Apothony.
Apothony, yeah. He's a good guy. And he likes to run fleets. He runs small skirmish fleets, but he could never assert his personality in the FC room. And so he never got to run in any fleets. He would always get like shuffled off into a corner, and then he'd feel bad and he'd message somebody about it. And it's like, dude, you just got to, it's a dog pen. You just got to kind of get in there and piss on somebody.
Yeah, and he was actually a really knowledgeable dude and stuff. I think with him in particular, and this is a mistake a lot of up and coming dudes make, I think, is that he tried too hard to reinvent the wheel, to like, okay, instead of running this basic, vanilla doctrine that we've got, he would develop, like armor tanks, 3 types of E-War in their mid, like phantasms to roam around with, which no one had, so he had to go and buy them. And then it was like 4 different working parts to the fleet, and on paper looked really cool, but it just didn't work in practice. And that, if he'd have just stayed on the basics and let his kind of knowledge and skill show through on regular doctrines, he probably would have got a bit more traction. But you're right, he should have got his elbows out a little bit more as well.
So it's too bad I really miss him. I think he's a great guy.
He's
part of TIS for a while. You were gonna say, Elise?
I was gonna say, like, what do you guys think? Like, what are some predictions? I don't know if it's too early in the show to do this, but what do you think is going to happen in the next week? Obviously, some of you guys have the ability to like kind of cheat. You know what's going to happen. But like, just humor. Like, how do you think the next week or two is going to play out?
I think it's a mud bog. There's a lot of real estate and a lot of structures involved in this, and everybody waiting for some cataclysmic fucking failure cascade that's going to spring this whole war and make it all over in like a month is basically lost their fucking mind and never fought a real big war before. There are thousands of structures that have to be cleared out, iHubs across hundreds and hundreds of systems, and that's if the invaders win. And if like the invaders don't win and the invaded get to push back, that's a whole different set of real estate that goes from Declan to Catch. Like, it's enormous, and it has the potential, assuming that nobody like rage disbands their alliance, to be years long, just through sheer attrition of structures.
Well, whatever way it breaks, right? Like if the Pappy side wins and over time flattens the Imperium, we know Test is next, whatever way happens. So you'll see like resurgence in the Imperium come back for their pound of flesh from Test in the future. Either way, like but I think in the short term, like I think you'll start to see one of the fronts become, more of a focal point, because right now it's like a rubber band being stretched one way or the other. I think at some point, you'll see it ping to one end or hit someone in the eye, like one or the other.
No, I agree with that. I think that the period basis delve side, I think that's going to be the more stagnant front, and I think you'll start seeing PanFam make a little more headway around Fountain. Nothing against the Knit, and it's doing an amazing job. I think just what the force they're up against, they're going to struggle to keep up the current pace.
But so far, the actual only, I don't know if this is the right word, penetration into Imperium space. Yeah, maybe not the phrasing right. Has been in period basis. And there was an attack on TCAG too. It wasn't necessarily successful, but they kind of beat the hell out of Imperium early on, but they kind of got lucky, basically, Legacy, and they got pushed back pretty easily by the capital escalation and stuff. So it seems like there's more possibility for inroads in the south, but you think the action is going to be in Fountain because that's where PL and NC and Horde are, or is that what you mean?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's like so far with our experience in the fleets I've been in, dealing with tests down in the south. Most of the time that they flash form a fleet to try and get into a period basis, so we beat them to TCAG, and we cut off that entrance into the region. So I mean, they took XZ, and I think we've actually reinforced that last night. But being on this side of the fence, it doesn't seem like the test portion of the coalition against us has the motivation that the Hordelings and PanFam have up north.
I mean, up north in Fountain, like essentially what we're going to see up north in Fountain is a true test to whether subcap N+1 can be is something that is true in this game. It is a formidable thing in this game, or whether you can actually fight outnumbered and come out with the win consistently.
I think it's very curious to see what the lasting effects are going to be, or if this ever happens, right? So right now the entire Fountain front is relying on this motivation factor of we haven't given up a system, so we're winning. If that breaks, is that going to snowball out of control? Probably not, right? But it's kind of interesting to see what's going to happen there. So I think Laz is right. I think this is where there's going to be most of the poking and prodding. Part of the reason is Fountain. Who cares, right? Who cares if Fountain drops? It has absolutely no strategic value to it besides initiatives there.
Presumably, the initiative would care somewhat, right? Otherwise, if they didn't care, they would already be in Delve, wouldn't they? They would have that would have been declared a floodplain as well.
We care for sure, but it's not like Fountain Sov defines us, as it were, right?
No,
so,
I don't. But I don't. I think at the same time, like there must be some kind of sentiment within the initiative that they don't consider. Whenever they talk, it's like us plus the Imperium, whereas where everyone else considers the Imperium to be goons plus in it and stuff. So like I feel like if it doesn't matter in terms of strategic value, it matters as a matter of principle. Otherwise, surely you guys would be either in Delve or somewhere else.
Well, isn't the whole idea to keep initiative interested in the fact, because if the initiative moves into Delve, then suddenly you've got the entire initiative super fleet, the entire goon super fleet, all concentrated in one area, and that's like a fucking hornet's nest, and nobody really wants to stick their dick in at that point, right? So if you can keep them separated on two fronts, you at least keep the super fleet split apart, you keep the main fleet split apart, and you don't have quite as much of a ball ache to deal with as far as an attacker goes. If you let the Fountain, if initiative gives up Fountain and they all retreat to Delve, now you've got this massive concentration of ass in one spot, and that's not good for you guys. Unless I've seriously missed the fucking train in the game.
If you if you really want to like ramp this war up, like, you know, if initiative and when like initiative kind of moves to delve for whatever reason, like, you know, that will definitely, as you know, as Grath says, like concentrate, you know, the capability of, you know, the Imperium for sure. But like, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Initiative's definitely not going to be, you know, just, you know, giving up Fountain without any kind of fight. Like, I'm fairly certain you've seen that, and we're capable of carrying on with that, because, you know, after all, a lot of people kind of say like, oh, you know, you can't, you know, you can't sort of hold out indefinitely, and that's possible. There's probably some truth to that.
How big of a morale hit will it be if you're pushed down away from Fountain?
I mean, there's going to be a little bit of a hit, yeah, but like, I don't think there's going to be. It's not a down and out situation.
But the thinking is that only delve counts, and this is from Imperium side.
No, I don't think delve counts. I don't think only delve counts. They classify delve as you know, fortress delve, and that's understandable.
That's fortress delve, right? That's how they name it. That's how they position it. And Fountain is a floodplain, and so is period basis.
No, they didn't never said that. Fountain a floodplain, and I'm questioning whether it is or not. Like, you know, they've said it's not, but then, you know, that's clearly why.
No. Somebody did call it a floodplain, not in public, but I did hear that from somebody who's an official. Here, right? Like, no. Not here. No, I've heard this before the show. Like, that's because we were talking like, what's the floodplains here? Like, what can you afford to lose without a morale hit?
Period basis. Who fucking cares about period basis?
Right.
Period basis for sure. Probably. You know, I mean, obviously the whole stuff in all of the stuff in Cloud Ring is clearly, you know.
We had stuff in Cloud Ring.
Hang on,
I learned.
Hang on a minute. Like, you're
saying
that
is obviously a floodplain as well.
You're saying it doesn't matter. Period basis doesn't matter. Well, why are you guys fighting so hard for it then? Like,
well, I mean,
you know,
Fountain and period bases are actually important because the longer you can keep them from getting a foothold in Fountain and period bases, it's going to hurt their morale more and more because right now it's a battle of beachheads because they really have nowhere to base out of to properly strike Delve. Because until they get a good foothold in period bases, a good foothold in Fountain, Delve right now is kind of just like in the free. Like there's no threat to Delve until you get these forces in Fountain and period bases to strike at it into the core. So I think right now the most important regions are Fountain and period bases.
So they are right. So
got wrong instantly. I like it.
So can we? So are Fountain and period bases floodplains or not?
I don't think so.
No, I think they're definitely not floodplains. I think right now they're more of like they're the first line of defense really, because it's kind of you hold the first set of trenches as long as possible, and then you drop back to the next set, and then it's just kind of like World War I methodology.
Very much
so. We were talking about this before, like the Imperiums have militarized or weaponized the concept of a draw, right? So like. And this isn't like throwing shade. I'm not doing anything like right now. So the mentality is you haven't even taken Fountain yet. And if you do, we don't even care because there's so much of Fountain and that's not Delve, right? So I'm summarizing here. Obviously, they're going to fight for Fountain and period basis because as Laz very eloquently put it, the longer that the Pappy front stalls out there, it's the better it is for morale. It's like you can't even get through my layer of fat, right? You can't even get to the muscle. So what hope do you think you have going for Delve? My prediction for the next week, I don't think anything significant is going to be taken in Fountain, right? I think there's going to be more fights over the D4K jump bridge. It might go down. But then who cares? There's El Taque right after it, right? So I think it's definitely one of these type of things where nothing very significant is going to happen in the next week. I think people are going to kind of draw more lines, throw more stuff at the wall and see what sticks in terms of motivation. I don't think either side is losing any morale right now. Both sides and this is like a weird thing. I guess it shows that both sides are doing it right, but both sides are feeling like they're winning, right? Like I can ask a random initiative guy right now, are you winning? Yes. I can ask a random horde guy right now, are you winning? Absolutely. Like it's just that mentality is there for both sides, that where we're winning what our leadership said we're out to do, we're achieving. So it's kind of neat to see how this kind of plays out.
I told Batani when I joined, considering that we currently live in Delve, we need to find a shitty pet and prop it up in the IRIT triangle, and I think the universe would have made a complete circle.
Well, I agree with what Tabit said. Like the way, like, because I have no position in leadership right now, so I don't have any of the backroom channels and all that. And the way I see it is, the longer that we can hold them in outside of Fountain or outside of Period basis, the higher the chances are that the whole war just kind of peters out. So if you can just stall them, you're going to see numbers go down until eventually it's just not realistic anymore.
And I think I think it's going to be I think it's like that kind of aspect as well. It's going to be a telling, either a positive thing for Eve to show that, like, you know, even if you're vastly outnumbered, you can still, you know, keep, and like, so long as you're coordinated enough and sort of willing enough, you can potentially, you know, hold out against a larger opponent.
Elise?
Oh, I was just giggling to myself a little bit. I mean, I think it's funny. I think it's just funny to hear the Imperium side say that they're the little guy. Not saying that you're wrong. It's just funny to hear it, right? Like,
that's why
it's a joke. No, it absolutely is.
I mean, we may be more unified. We may be more unified, but, like, you know, you can't say that the numbers advantages with Imperium. It's just that's inaccurate.
And that just brings me joy. Like, you're not wrong, but it just makes me smile. Like, there's something in the weird Eve part of my brain, which is now like taken over. It just like, oh, Imperium's the underdog. Poke, joy, like that comes out.
Is it an irony that you enjoy, or is it reality?
It has never been the case really in the history of the server. So it just kind of, it's funny to hear.
Well, I mean, I think Casino War, we were kind of like an underdog to some degree. I think a lot of people like extracted, a degree
kind
of
like an underdog in World War B.
That pleasure center also goes off when I hear Casino War. By the way, just
I'm not gonna go. Like, you know what? I would, if I was an Imperium member before this, I would be like, they never fucking named a war after your shitty alliance. And I would have just like rode with the World War B thing, because none of the rest of you have ever had a war named after your alliance. So fuck you. Take it and run. World War B sounds great.
See, I completely support World War B, because
you even got a skin for it. Fuck. Like a hanger skin.
Yeah,
like, how many hanger skins have they made for your alliance? Is it none? Because it feels like none.
Well, and whoever wins the war really gets, like, it's like history defines like whoever won. I mean, and PanFam and their whole coalition won the first war. So I mean, that essentially means you get naming rights, right? And so World War B sticks. So in essence, this would be World War B 2.
Yeah, a second war named after their alliance, still none named after yours. Fuck off. That's where I'm at with it.
All right, so we did something today. We named World War B and we named World War B 2. Let's progress.
Ship it.
I want to apologize. I went to make the 0 thing and my finger stuck up. I absolutely had no intention of making that stupid fucking racist okay shit. And if it popped up on my hand, somebody noticed it. It's not my fault.
That's an accident, yeah.
Yeah, it was 100% an accident. It goes like this. I got compressed fucking discs in my back right now. I go for MRIs on Tuesday, so my hands and arms aren't really working that great. Awesome.
The disclaimers you have to make in 2020.
Yeah, it's wild.
All right. Well, thanks. And did we get predictions from everybody? Like, Elise, you gave yours, I think. And did anybody else need to say where they think it's going to go?
Hedliner?
Yeah, I knew we had a whole.
Let's go Laz, then Hedliner.
I thought I'd given mine already. I said that.
I
think we had a whole conversation. I mean, we had like a debate about it and everything.
That's what started the whole floodplains conversation.
All right, good. All right.
Good call.
Right. But we didn't necessarily, I just want to know if anybody else had anything else to say on that. If not, we'll just wrap up.
I mean, we can't let Hedliner do too much because he can cheat, right? He could say, I predict the Solitude moon's going to fall, and he'll go and do that. So
done. Yeah. Well, we'll see. This is a long war, right? I think that's the one thing we can agree on. I don't think this is going to diffuse in the next few weeks. This is a big one.
Oh, yeah.
I predict it's going to go on through the rest of 2020, which I will say my long-term predictions are a bit shaky. I did predict that when Sword Dragon's coalition fell apart, that he would still maintain a big presence in EVE Online. I was super wrong about that. I will own up to that. So, take my prediction what you will. My short-term ones, spot on. My long-term ones, super dicey.
All right. Well, it's been really nice having you guys here. You guys are all like legendary players in EVE Online. They've been around a long time, seen a lot of things. So it's nice to go over the war with you guys to get some just some deep perspective on what we're looking at here and what to make of it.
Yeah. Shall we go through a little bit of news and programming?
Yeah, go ahead. Do you have anything?
Actually, there was one thing. Which I kind of noticed fairly sort of recently, and it's probably not going to really affect too many people out there, but the people who like really enjoy sort of like looking at EVE in a very sort of beautiful kind of way, like essentially some of the more advanced kind of NVIDIA effects that you can put on, like that you can add to games, has now been included in EVE as well. So I can give a bit of a demonstration, actually. Just give it a second. So I'm just going to transition here, but like essentially, this is Jitterundock. So as it is in any normal kind of game client, but now what you can do if you have an NVIDIA GPU is you can actually add game kind of filters. So if I quickly do that now, like I've set up a game filter to showcase what you can kind of do. And so there's various different types of filters that you can kind of utilize, but like you can create and change kind of the view or the sort of like the how EVE is kind of sort of, well, not rendered, I guess. Like there's various different types of visual effects that you can add to it and stuff like that. So one which I think is could actually be a really, really cool thing is there is a where is it depth of field, which could be pretty cool. It's not really working too well right now, but if CCP can kind of like really get on that and really like square that away, like that could really add a lot of cinematic kind of appeal to a lot of the kind of awesome sort of content creation that people can create in EVE.
That sounds good. Okay, well, maybe we can ask CCP. We're going to have CCP on Tuesday. I think we'll be talking to CCP Rise about the new quadrant that's coming up. We're going to have Satonia with us. We have not the complete list of CCPers, nor do we have the showtime, but Tuesday during the daily stream, you'll be able to see and talk to CCP about the new stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, there's one of the new things that's coming out is they're iterating on the proving grounds. So you'll be able to use a thing like a filament, and you'll just go straight into an arena to fight someone else, like matchmaking style. So if you wanted PvP instantly, you could just go ahead and do that. There are different rules depending on what day of the week it is, or like certain periods of time. So sometimes it's like 2v2s with only cruisers. Sometimes it's 5v5s with destroyers. There's also the competitive EVE scene has a group called the 5v5 Scrims. They're actually a Twitch channel called 5v5 Scrims. It's like basically a competitive Eve thing. They're doing the quarterfinals right now. The grand finals, I believe, are not this coming week, or not next week, but the weekend after that. I could be wrong. It could actually just be next week. I don't know. You should give them a shout. There are actually teams from different alliances that are in the Pappy and Imperium front, so you can kind of cheer those guys on if you want to root for them. It's organized PvP.
Right. And don't forget the big feature that's coming is what's it called? Proving Grounds, I guess. So
there was also a little bit of controversy with some new packs that CCP kind of released, skill point packs.
Oh, you can buy skill points again for money.
$40 for 1.5 million skill points or something.
I couldn't figure. I didn't want to do the math. Is that a good deal? Like I never could figure it out.
I have no idea.
It's a good deal if you have more than 80 million.
I have no idea.
So the initial kind of issue with this was when they first kind of when they initially sort of brought out the information about this, it wasn't actually specifically indicated that it was only one per account. So people thought that it was going to be a case of like, you know, they're just handing out IS, like they're just literally like, you know, if you throw them money, then they'll just give you SP just like that. And a lot of people obviously see that as a bit of something that CCP just should not do in principle. Is to just, you know, open the floodgates for SP to just be just generated out of nothing in vast quantities. I mean, obviously, SP is kind of generated anyway in game, but it's done at a particular rate. Obviously, skill farms kind of do, you know, magnify that quite significantly, but you know, just generating SP out of nowhere is a bridge that CCP hasn't really crossed, and people thought that these things were at that moment where CCP had kind of bridged that or gone over that bridge, but you know, thankfully CCP has come back and said they're like, no, these are literally like one per account. So
I think a lot of the anger stems from one thing, and it's not the monetization strategy at all. I think if you ask people in a vacuum, hey, you care if someone could pay $40 once for 1.5 million skill points, everyone will just say, nah, that's cool, whatever. What got at a lot of people's goats is that this is something that CCP said explicitly they wouldn't do. They're like, well, we won't do that, don't worry. But the thing is, they said this like a few years ago, right? The problem is all CCP has to do, and this is my opinion here, obviously, is all CCP has to do is come out and say, hey, in a dev blog, hey, we're a 20-year-old company. The guys who had ideas 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they just don't work with the game anymore. So we're going to change our minds on a few things. Sorry if it ruffles any feathers, but any promises that we made, they're completely gone. I hope we've earned the respect that, you know, we're not going to instantly like just put in gold ammo and try and kill the game that way. We're going to do stuff for the game in a good way, but we might have to go back on a few things we said we'd never do, like get rid of asset safety. Or
anybody who expects a 20-year-old game not to change some of its principles is insane.
I agree. I think like it's people need to just get a bit of a hold of themselves and stuff like that. You know, they can't just kind of entertain the wildest dreams of all of us people who play the game. They have to like manage it in a way that kind of makes sense in the holistic sense, and also run a business at the same time. Like, you know, otherwise there will be no Eve, you know, if they become insolvent and
like that guy. He's like, it devalues any promises they make going forward, though.
No,
it absolutely doesn't. It's fucking 20 years, bud. 20 years. You get a marriage that lasts half that, and then we'll consider your opinion valid.
Okay.
But is it? I mean, like, you could debate whether, like, saying something in a dev blog or in some post it constitutes them a binding promise forevermore. You know, you can't really hold them to that for years and years and years, to be honest.
One of the good things and the bad things about Eve is there are a lot of veteran players So a lot of people remember the things that they said. And we're talking about personnel at CCP that aren't there anymore. And not only are they not there anymore, they haven't been there for some time. And like their replacements aren't even there anymore, right? Like you can't have these ghosts holding up what you're going to do and decisions you make going forward. But at the same time, I think people are rightfully mad that CCP said they wouldn't do something and they did that thing. You just have to come out and say, rip that Band-Aid off, say, you know what? Everything's fair game now. We want to make Eve the best it can be. We're not going to be like tortured by these ghosts, and just get that out of the way so this never happens again, right? It's like, so tiring to hear.
It might last another 10 years. If you don't like that, oh well, I guess fuck it. That's the statement they should make, but they'll probably dress it up a little bit. Probably.
Yeah, and it's not very fair to hang CCP pencil sharpener out to dry for something that like CCP can't remember his name like did a decade ago, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think the underground or the undercurrent is Eve is a niche game. It had gatekeeping mechanisms that reward loyalty and being here a long time. It's almost like being a fan of a music band, an original fan, and you're like, hey, I've been here since the beginning, and they, this is what they sound like. And then the newer fans are saying, no, they sound like this. And you're like, no, you don't really know what they sound like. So the point is there's this ownership about what makes Eve niche. And one of those things was you have to wait your turn. You have to earn your skill points over a longer period of time. And to see shortcuts.
Trash, right? Like you can go, I've got 300 million skill points. I've been playing for 14 years, but somebody could start tomorrow and just be like, look what I can do, and bought 300 million skill points. They've changed stuff before. They'll change it again. Just be fine with it.
Right.
The other side of that coin is I've been playing for longer than Grath, and I have 130 million skill points.
You're a bad.
Well, you should have been a better customer then, didn't you? And kept your accounts straight.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all we got. You guys have anything else that you wanted to mention while you were here?
I do. The next PL dude that messages me and tries to tell me anything that PL's doing, I will publicly out you to Hedliner or Elise so that they purge you. And with that statement, if you're unhappy with the alliance, AMOC is recruiting. You can come hang out with me here, but don't snitch on the boys because that's still shitty.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, that thing pisses me off more about Eve than any like if you saw my reaction like the whole CO2 thing and then the first war, it's just not cool, man. Let's just play play fair.
I would agree with that.
Elise is like, play fair? This is Total War. What is this?
I mean, I just don't like gossips in Eve Online, even though I'm kind of an Eve gossip, right? I'm on a podcast gossiping about what's going on, whatever. My final thing is that Dunk Dinkle, a former CSM, wrote his kind of like CSM retrospective, like what he learned from the whole thing. A very short post, considering I'm sure he spent like hundreds of hours doing CSM duties. But it was really enlightening, and it lines up exactly with how I feel about the role of the CSM. So give that a peek.
Great. All right. Well, I'll wrap up. Remember, watch CCP on Tuesday here at Talking Stations. We'll break into live ambient coverage of the war and try to get in on some battles to show you guys what's going on. But we are in transition, so we're not going to be able to stream all the time. We'll still try to bring you daily shows, give you daily updates and that sort of stuff. And we'll try to bring you news that's not war related, because not everybody is fighting in this war. But these shows definitely, this war definitely merits this kind of attention. We make no apologies about that. I want to thank Hedliner for coming on. Laz, great to see you again. Thanks for coming on. And Grath, thank you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. That's all we have today. We will see you next time on Talking in Stations.